Yesterday evening, there was breaking news with both Texas top Republicans and Democrats swiftly to issuing praise and condemnation after yesterday's, again, breaking news that the U.S. Supreme Court decision allowing the state to use its controversial new congressional map in the 2026 midterm elections. The map was passed this summer by Texas lawmakers and designed to give Republicans as many as 5 new seats in the U.S. House. But last month, a panel of 3 federal judges in El Paso found the map to be racially gerrymandered, a decision the state of Texas quickly appealed to the Supreme Court. Governor Greg Abbott said, "We won," in a press release celebrating the ruling. Texas is officially and legally more red. On the other side, Representative Jean Wu of Houston, chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus, said in a statement, "The Supreme Court failed Texas voters today, and they failed American democracy." And joining us now is Representative Jean Wu. Representative, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
And if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
I mean, it wasn't just breaking news, Gene. It was spirit breaking news, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have been waiting for this decision for a while. And, just as the Supreme Court laid out in its own opinion, time was of the essence because we are in the filing period, because we're going into the court's own created doctrine of the Purcell doctrine that we're getting too close to the election, too close to the end of the filing period. And so we're asking them to hurry up. Obviously, this decision was very disappointing, but I think it's more than that. It's frankly enraging, because what the lower court basically said is, look, obviously this is based on race, because they've come up with no non-race-based explanations, and every word out of their own mouths said this was about race. From the letter from the DOJ office, to Greg Abbott's own statement on the news, to Republicans' testimony in court, to their testimony on the House floor. Every single thing says we did it because of race, and now the Supreme Court says, "Are you sure? We don't see it. We don't see where it is. Are you sure they said it's based on race?"
Representative Wu, take us back, though, a little bit for folks that aren't following this as closely as you have, of course, been following it. What the Supreme Court actually said did not say that the maps are legal. They simply
Correct.
said, we're at a point, we're going to use these maps, this can go back to the courts, and they can redecide. Correct?
Yep. So you're absolutely right, and that is correct. And everyone says, "Oh, we won, these maps are good." No. The court said the injunction, the block that the lower trial court put into place saying, hey, these maps are illegal, you shouldn't use them, they lifted that block. The Supreme Court hasn't found anything about the maps, and basically said, like, the trial court probably needs to tell us, are you sure that you found all these things talking about race? The lower court's opinion was several hundred pages long, detailing every single time the Republicans talked about race in this context. And I think the situation is going to end up being that the Supreme Court is going to find that these maps were illegal, were unconstitutional, were discriminatory. But because of the doctrine that they made up themselves, they say, well, it's too late. I guess we'll just have to let it slide, right? And so they're going to reward the bad actors for their bad actions.
When you talk about it being too late, and that comes out of policy and talking about and precedent as to how close to an election can you shift these kind of things. Yep. We just wrapped an election. If you can't make a decision right at the end of a previous election, there's no window when it is okay to make any changes then.
Yeah, so what that feels like, what it sounds like, is that there is one set of rules for everyone else. And there is one different set of rules for the people in charge, for the Republicans. Because basically the Supreme Court says we will bend over backwards to find any possible reason, any outlet for you to do what you want and to excuse your bad behavior. And I think the people should be tired of this. You should be sick of it. Like politicians, our leaders, getting away with things, the powerful, the rich, getting away with it simply because they can.
It almost feels like the Supreme Court is owned by Trump and that they are racist.
Look, I really, as an attorney, as someone who, proudly says I was a law school nerd and spent a lot of time digging into our Constitution, looking at our laws and understanding the philosophies behind our jurisprudence, it is heartbreaking to watch sworn judicial officials basically saying we swore to uphold the United States Constitution, but at every turn, they rip pieces of the Constitution apart in order to give an excuse to Donald Trump and to give him more power. It is really disheartening to see that over and over again. I have no answer for them. They have to answer for themselves.
Representative Wu, respectfully, however, you are an elected official as well, and you are sitting in a seat where you are able to speak directly within the government. What are you doing? What is the Democratic Party doing now moving forward? We understand the decision has come down. What is y'all's plan?
So let me push back on that just a little bit. And people have said this again, what are the Democrats going to do to save us? What are the Democrats going to do to fix this? And I always ask, why does it just fall on the Democrats? Why does this not fall on every American? Why does this not fall on everyone who says, I love this country. I love America. I love being an American. Why does it fall on everyone?
I think it does.
Democrats right now, Democrats are, we've said we will now fight every battle, every opportunity, every time. And I know in the past, the Republicans did these kind of things, and I think they did them this time, hoping and thinking that Democrats wouldn't respond. The Democrats, as always, would just send a strongly worded letter, and that would be it. But this time, we fought back. Using whatever tools we had, we fought back. We made them wait. We made them stop. We made people aware of it. We turned the public against them. We let the public know that their own democracy is being stolen from in front of their noses. And I know they may want to keep doing it, but we're saying we're not going to let you do this anymore without some resistance. And what we're asking people to do is we cannot resist alone. Democrats cannot do this alone. We need all Americans, no matter who you are. You don't have to be a Democrat. You don't have to be a Republican. You don't have to be anything. All you have to do is give a damn about this country.
Let me ask this, take you back a little bit to when you're talking about the Supreme Court. Two things there. First of all, we were talking about how the Supreme Court is giving power in a way, going along with Trump and giving him power. In effect, they're actually giving these powers to the presidency, and so whoever becomes the next president will also have these tools. It seems that people forget that the parties can shift, and these cans of worms they're opening could be more complicated for the side that thinks they're winning in the moment.
Yeah.
But the other thing,
exactly, the redistricting is example of this. This is like Republicans are trying to play this game, they're trying to play with fire. And what they're seeing now is Democrats and people around this country fighting back and saying, no, two can play at this game. And we're going to fight fire with fire.
The other part you were talking about a minute ago was the Supreme Court hearing these maps and seeing the legality of them. When would that possibly happen? How soon could that happen? At this point, I'm assuming with the pacing and time it takes, it will not affect 2026. But how soon could this be judged on?
I think it's quite likely that it will end up in front of the full Supreme Court by January. Okay. But I really can't say. You need to ask a constitutional scholar for that, given the holidays and everything going on. So I think it's going to be soon.
Okay.
But I assume that based on the ruling yesterday, these are the maps we're going to be playing with. But even still, out of these 5 seats, I think Democrats can win a good number of them.
I think you're right. I think you need to take that enraged attitude and turn it into, as you say, fire. So let me ask you this. Given that they have ruled this way, doesn't that give some credence to what happened in California? It would be very hard to rule against the people's will of California now that they've made this ruling.
Yep, and you're exactly right. And then I think this, basically this stance solidifies what California, and I think even the opinion itself alluded to what happened in California, saying like, with tentative thumbs up. what this actually should be a message to is not California. This should be a message to every blue state in the United States, every state who still wants to fight for democracy and fight for the American way. This is your time. The Supreme Court is now telling you this is now your time to act. They've given you free rein to do this. You must fight fire with fire.
If the Supreme Court is saying that this is too short a runway to put these maps into effect right now, and therefore we have to remove that stay, doesn't that apply to all these other redistricting maps that may be coming forward in other states that are trying to get in for 2026? Can't they all say, the Supreme Court said this is just too soon to change this?
So that deadline is based on Texas's laws and Texas's deadlines. And the irony of that is my very first election was one where the courts made them redistrict. The Supreme Court and the Fifth Circuit made them redistrict like 4 or 5 times in one cycle. And they pushed the 2012 primaries back to May, pushed it back like 2.5 months. Mm-hmm. And that was perfectly fine. And we do this all the time. We change election dates, we change filing dates all the time. And somehow, because of this one thing, even though it's still 2025, right, the Supreme Court says it's too late. But all these other states, they have different deadlines at different times. So what you want to take from this is this idea that we have to stop it now because of whatever deadline is completely arbitrary and made up by this corrupt Supreme Court.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We're speaking with Representative Gene Wu of Houston, the chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. And you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Let's go to Alex from Jersey Village. Alex, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question for Representative Wu?
Hello, real quick. Representative Wu, I appreciate the passion and the fervor that you have of fighting fire with fire. But how are we supposed to stay, confident in our own local officials whenever, these higher courts are just completely overturning things that we're trying to vote on for ourselves here in Texas?
Look, we always hope and that every elected official in America who has taken an oath to this nation and to the Constitution remember their oaths and take it seriously. But we know that there will be people who don't. And we're watching not only Donald Trump, but essentially the entire Republican Party give carte blanche to criminals, to people who do not care what our law is, who happily avoid and break our laws just because it gets them what they want. And what we need to do as a public is saying, no, we are not going to give you a pass on this anymore. I think the way you hold local people accountable is the same way we've always held local people accountable and everyone else accountable. We don't let them skate. And we're here at this point in our history because we've let people skate for too long. We've let people get away with lies. We've let people get away with frauds and deceptions and not call them out on it, including in the media. We should call it what it is. If people are lying to our faces, we should call them liars.
Let's go to Roberto from the Museum District. Roberto, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question for Representative Wu?
Thank you. I'm riding around doing errands, and I just heard not the beginning, but I heard this representative being very upset because one of you asked a question, and he was upset. Why are you picking on us, Democrats? What's the anger about? I don't understand that. And here's the thing. In Houston, I know because I'm involved, there's an independent movement going on. Elon Musk, regardless of what you think of him, wants to start an independent movement because I've called in before, and I've said this already. I'm disgusted with both parties. Okay? We had a president who was incompetent, and yet the Democrats protected him, okay? Now, concerning local, because he's state representative, I want to put this in his ear. Why don't we consider using artificial intelligence to cut up into districts? Instead of having the Democrats, when they're in power, favor their party, and the Republicans favoring their party when they're in power. So both parties are guilty. And that's it. I'm through.
Roberto, thank you, Roberto. Representative Wu.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit to unpack that. So, first of all, I would love to use artificial intelligence or any type of intelligence other than political to draw our boundaries and our maps. But here's the thing. Every Democratic-controlled state in the nation has either put into place or tried to put into place a nonpartisan redistricting plan. Look at California. Look at New York. Look at Illinois. All the places that we care about have put in those provisions. And on the other side, every Republican state has rejected them. Don't say both sides are the same. The person coming to help you put out the fire at your house is not the same as the person pouring gasoline. Those are not moral equivalents. And for people to come out and say people who are trying to fix things are the same as people burning it down, that's an insult to our intelligence. This is the same thing that the Supreme Court is doing right now. In Texas, we have a saying for this. We call it, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. I can see you right there. And this is what they've been doing to us for the past decade. Like Donald Trump and the Republicans have said, look, the thing you can see with your own eyes, what you can see that's black and white right in front of you, it's not there. It's just in your imagination. And we go, but it's right there. And they say, well, we beg to differ. Two sides disagree. Well, there it is. And the news covers it and say, well, two sides disagree on a thing that we can plainly see. And that's the story.
You're listening to...
And so I don't accept that anymore.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Representative Gene Wu of Houston. Let's go to the phone lines. John from downtown. John, what's on your mind?
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. Representative, I got a very simple question for you. As a Democratic Party, why are we always leading from behind? We let the Supreme Court seat get away from us through Mitch McConnell's tactics. We bent backwards for them. We keep complaining about what we could have done, what we should have done. Yes. I mean, the other caller is correct. It's getting to a point where either people will not take it anymore because both political parties are now taking money from the same corporate donors, and we're trying to expect a different result. This is what happens when both political parties are trying to play the same game, and one political party is always trying to catch up. This should have never happened. Look,
John, I'm gonna end you right there just so we can hear from the representative before we have to wrap the segment.
Yeah, so the same thing, like, look, don't look at what I say. Don't listen to what I say. Look at what I do. Don't listen to what Donald Trump says. Look at what he does. Actions speak louder than words. Time after time, Democrats in Congress have tried to pass nonpartisan redistricting, have tried to pass medical insurance for everybody, have tried to increase the minimum wage, have tried to do all these things that people have said they've asked for. Time and time again, Republicans are on the opposite side of what the American public wants. But it's covered as, oh, well, they disagree. Look, I don't disagree with you that both sides take money from corporate interests and we're too beholden to them. I agree. But why don't we say, let's go forward, ask where everyone is. Look at what they do. Look at what they're fighting for. Look at what they vote for instead of who's giving them money, what people are saying about them, and look at what they actually do. You have Donald Trump right now tearing our country apart, sending our economy into the garbage disposal. Republicans who are enabling him, giving him the power to do it, and Democrats who are fighting against all of it. If you say those are the two same sides, you are part of the problem.
Representative Gene Wu of Houston, again, the chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. Representative Wu, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.